Welcome to the latest edition of the Giants Hangout, our weekly roundtable discussion as we recap what occurred in the previous game, and we utilize three themes to accomplish that feat. So after a miraculous comeback by the Giants as they outlasted the Cardinals 31-28, we're going to hit on explosive plays, chunk plays on offense, why they're lacking on the defensive side of the ball, as well as some notable injuries and the impact that may have on the Giants in the short term and the long term. Lance Medow, Russ Salzberg, Howard Cross with you. And today we bring in a fourth member of our team, none other than Chris Bisignano from the Giants Insider newspaper and podcast. Chris, looking forward to having you in the conversation. And once again, I want to say good luck before we undergo these festivities, given all the personalities in this room. This should be a very fun adventure. All right, let's start, Russ. And I want to hit on what I think to me is the biggest differential into how the Giants put this comeback together, and that's what Brian Daboll referred to as chunk plays. Because if you do a little math here, interestingly, in the first half, they only had 3 plays on offense of 10 or more yards. In the second half, that skyrocketed, Russ, to 14. And they were spread across the board through those 5 scoring drives. They had a minimum of 2 of each of them. So I think without those explosive plays, Russ, we're probably not talking about the biggest comeback in terms of overcoming a 21-point deficit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only thing I will say, while we're talking about chunk plays that are missing, there was too many junk plays by the Giants defense, in particular in that first half. And I'm sure some of you guys, Howard, I'm sure you remember, going back to 2007, which was Coughlin's first Super Bowl year, I was sitting watching the game, and I'm saying to myself, if I'm digressing for a second, but I think it's important. Everybody was talking about the Giants defense was supposed to be good that year. They opened up in Dallas, losing 45-35. The next week, they come home, they lose to Green Bay, I think it was 35-13. They gave up 90 points in the first 2 games. And in the third game of the season, at halftime, they were losing 17-3 in Washington. And then it all turned around. Listen, when we got to see Jalen Hyatt with that 58-yard, hauling in that 58-yard bomb, that was terrific. And then 2 plays later, I think Daniel took it in. But again, what happened? Less than 4 minutes later, the defense gave up another touchdown, that's what made it 28-7. So to me, I think the bigger problem was, while they were missing those chunk plays, like you like to say it, or Dave likes to say it, I think the problem in that first half was just the defense. They had no time to come up with the chunk plays. The defense, they were allowing the Cards to just go up and down the field and score. I thought I was seeing a Vince Lombardi Packers team, for crying out loud.
Now, listen, I understand what you're saying, but think of it this way. See, what happened in the game is that basically the Giants' offensive line played well. The Cardinals were supposed to be like going to get 7 or 8 sacks. I watched the first series. They never touched Daniel. The second series, they never touched Daniel. The Giants were, built their whole scheme around these quick passes, lighting up the middle of the field, having guys break open and get the ball really quickly. So the first half, they tried that. It didn't really work. I'm like, well, if they're not touching him, they should just throw the ball deep and see what happens. And that's what they started to do. They threw the first pass to Slayton on the sideline. If he had jumped and high pointed the ball, he would have caught that. That would have been the first catch of the day. They threw the next long pass to Hyatt, which was a long pass. Everybody thinks about that one because that was a successful one. And then all of a sudden, it starts. As far as the defense goes, they just weren't getting any pass. They did everything. They tried pass rush. They tried to blitz. They tried to do everything, and they started to get discouraged. But once the offense started to pick up, the defense started to pick up. If you watch the emotion of the game, like they were like, okay, we can do this now. They started to fire up on the sideline. They started to get fired up, and they started going on the field. Even though a lot of the plays that were quote unquote they were giving up chunk plays, a lot of it had to do with penalties too. They'd gash them for a run, they'd gash them for a big pass, then they'd hold them to 3rd down and 10, and all of a sudden the referees would throw a flag. They're going to have to clean up their penalties more than anything else. If they clean up their penalties, they're going to play better more consistently. They are giving up big plays defensively, but their penalties are what's keeping their drives alive.
Yeah, they had
What
9
also,
total penalties in terms of the game.
what also bothered me for all you guys, and listen, to me, football, it's not as complicated as people make it. You still got to tackle, you got to run, you got to hit. And the tackling from the Giants in that first half, I was like dumbfounded. I could not believe what I was seeing. Because I'm saying to myself, and Chris, I called Chris last night. We were talking about it on the phone. This is a better. We know that they were a better defense, and they were showing in that first half. I understand what Howard's saying, that your spirits get down, but for crying out loud, some of that tackling, when Josh Dobbs ran over Xavier McKinney was about the 3-yard line and just bulled his way, I thought he was Jim Brown running with the football. I just didn't understand that. And I know McKinney is a terrific football player. It just, everything to me defensively seemed out of whack in that first half.
They definitely, Russ, Howard, and Lance, they definitely didn't meet the energy that the Cardinals offense had going in the first half. No question about it. You could see the physicality. They weren't meeting what the Cardinals were bringing. And Howard, you bring up a good point. I think what happened that came out of that halftime, Howard, is that they had confidence in Josh Azudu at left tackle because he was playing well. He was playing well. And they changed it up. I think Daves and Kafka says, hey, listen, we have to start going deep here because I feel, Howard, they gained confidence. Is like you said, they came out to look for those quick hits. They had Azudu left tackle. He showed them he could hold up. I thought he played a heck of a game for his first start at left tackle. I really did. And then they changed it up at halftime, and Dave says, you know what, let's get aggressive. That's what they did. Great design, too, Howard, guys, on that route. But Hyatt, they had a little underneath route. Looked like the safety Wallace bit on it. They had a one-on-one with Hyatt and Marco Wilson, and that was no match. So no question, I think the confidence in the offensive line, like Howard said, I think that enabled them to come out that second half and says, you know what, let's attack down the field. And they did, and they came up with a lot of chunk plays.
And you need those chunk plays. This is why, although the defense, to Russ's point, needed to get those 2 3-and-outs late, but I would say we're not talking about this comeback without the fact that, to Chris's point, you went deep multiple times throughout the second half. Because, guys, as you know, time is of the essence in the second half. When you're down by 4 touchdowns, multiple scores, you have to be able to put together quicker drives. You don't have the luxury of orchestrating a 15-play, 90-yard drive that's going to take 8 or 9 minutes off the clock when in all likelihood there's going to be a penalty too. So I think by having those 30-plus, 50-plus yard plays, it enabled them to actually mount a quicker comeback to realistically be within striking distance in that fourth quarter.
Yeah. I don't know if you realize the Giants they picked it up because they ended up having, I believe it was 4 in a row, but the defense didn't have get their first 3-and-out until 8 minutes were left in the game. Until 8 minutes were left in the game. And then I think they had 4 in a row. And listen, the comeback was terrific. I mean, we're getting to see what a lot of us believed that, they called him Danny Dimes, and Danny Dimes is, maybe you want to start calling him Danny Dollars, because he certainly, you can tell on that field, he is the leader, and you can see the belief that they have in him. He is on as even a keel as anybody we've ever seen. And certainly Eli Manning was that guy, always on an even keel. But this guy is the same exact way. And he's playing with, he knows it's on him now. He knows he's got the new contract. He's playing with the fire. And I have to tell you, he was throwing that ball. He was ripping some of those throws into tight windows as well as you'll see anybody do it yesterday.
And he had time, Russ, right?
Yes.
He had time. A lot of people want to look at Daniel against Dallas. The guy was running for his life. Okay, he had no chance against the Cowboys. Yesterday, especially in the second half, obviously, he had time. And Daniel was doing his thing. Look, Daniel put this team on his back yesterday. That's it.
He did.
He put his team on. He put this team on his back in the second half and beat the Cardinals with his arm and his legs. Credit to Daniel. He did it a few times last year. I remember talking to Dave in the locker room a few times after games. When I went up to Dave, said, "Yo, Dave, Daniel, man, he put this team on his shoulder." And he looked at me like, "Chris, this is what he does." Okay, he did it again yesterday.
Yeah, Daniel did a good job. I'm telling you guys, like, you watching the game and seeing how much time he had, I knew that they were going to start throwing the ball deep. It's so impressive. I was listening to the broadcast. I'm on the broadcast. I'm listening to Bob and Carl talk about all the mistakes here. Daniel, I'm like, guys, listen, they're not touching him. It's like, if they're not touching him, they're about to throw the ball down the field. And they're like, okay, we'll see. I'm like, okay, you're going to see. Like, if you're not touching him, those guys are way too fast from the outside to not give him a shot. And they're like, all right, let's see how fast you really are. They were running so fast that Daniel couldn't get the ball down the field far enough to get it to him. They had to slow down to catch it. If he could really, he's going to throw it sooner. He had so much time. He's like, okay, I trust you. Go get it. And that's what's going to start happening. It's going to be like throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill sometimes when Tua throws the ball down the field. That's what it's going to start to look like. And what's going to happen throughout the offense for the rest of the season, now that that's happened in this game that's on tape, our guys are going to have to start to back up. They're not going to be pressing up on the receivers, because they're going to be like, okay, if they get by me, I can't catch them. And that's going to change the dynamic of the entire offense if people keep seeing that happen. If they can keep him off of him for like a couple of counts and he can throw the ball down the field, it's going to get real different for the offense.
Well, and that's why. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say what that leads to. What we got to see yesterday, going into the season, all of us who were there and watching all through training camp were very optimistic about the artillery for an air attack that Daniel was going to have this season. And all of a sudden yesterday, we got to see it all. We got to see Hyatt. We got to see Darren Waller is a beast. Slayton, we know. Hodgins, we know now. So to me, you're right. If he's got time, this team can do a lot of damage. And obviously he had some time and the damage was done.
Yeah, and you got to also consider, guys, in the first half, even though they knew what they were doing, and I'm not faulting or questioning anything, you have a team that just played Dallas and they got that lambasted. Like they got everybody came. They were making jokes on Instagram and Twitter about how everybody was getting sacks. You go into this game, you're missing your left tackle. You're starting a new guard. You're like, okay, how is the protection going to be? We got to get the ball out quick. We got to get the ball out quick. We got to get the ball out quick. Exactly. And they were trying to do that. And all of a sudden they were like, well, they're not really touching him. And they're going like, how many hits on Daniel? Well, he held the ball one time because he didn't want to throw it and he got sacked. But how many hits? He held the ball one time and he got sacked. But how many hits? There were no hits. Oh, none? None. All right. Throw that away. Everybody, come back in here. Let's go. You're getting the ball. You're getting the ball. We're going deep. Let's get at it. And that's what it looked like.
That seemed to be the biggest halftime adjustment right there, Howard.
Mm-hmm.
They came out in that second half and says, hey, our guys aren't getting hit. These guys are doing a job up front. Now we have to open this up. And that's what they did.
And Wink changed defense a lot as well. He didn't stop him. He didn't stop him. He's like, okay, we're going to crowd the line. We're going to crowd the line. Now they were stunting. The problem with stunting is when you stunt, like the linebackers, and I don't want to call anybody's name out because it's not fair to them, but one of the linebackers was overrunning the play every time. When he overran the play, he would leave a hole in the line. When he left the hole in the line, the running back would just wait. He'd run by. The guy would just run through. And there would be nobody to tackle him until he got almost to the safety. That was the problem. By the time they made one stop, when Arizona changed their philosophy a little bit, and they were like, okay, we need to grind out some clock. And when they started trying to grind out the clock, they started getting behind the sticks. When they got behind the sticks, it was like, okay, here we go. Like they should have stayed aggressive. They should have kept trying to get the ball, push the ball down the field. Instead, they were trying to, we need to burn some clock up. We got this lead. These guys are getting hot. We don't want them to get the ball back. And that's what got them in trouble.
Now, with respect to your points about the offensive line, guys, I want to expand on that because I think the jury is still out. And it's not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think in fairness, Dallas is cut from a very different cloth than Arizona from a defensive perspective, right, Chris? I mean, we can't overlook that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm very interested. I think here, moving forward a little bit to San Francisco, how they handle a Javon Hargrave and an Eric Armstead and a Nick Bosa is going to be, I think, more of a true tell as to whether or not these new faces on the offensive front can allow the Giants to still reach down the field and have those chunk plays, Howard. And I know you're looking at me that way, but just hold on. The reason I say that is Arizona is not a blitz-happy team, and you don't see a lot of the twists and turns that Dallas presents. So I think they handled this matchup, but the upcoming opponents are a little bit more resembling Dallas, I would argue, than what Arizona presents.
Well, not to look too far ahead. Think of it this way: we knew that Dallas was going to be a bunch of Pro Bowlers playing against these guys. We knew
Sure.
that Arizona could be a team that they should be able to manage offensively, offensive line-wise. And we knew that when they came up to San Francisco, you met a defense not quite as dynamic as Dallas, but they're still really, really good defense. Going forward, they're going to play teams. Every team's not going to be Dallas or San Francisco. They're going to have opportunities to play against them. Having a test or trying to gauge the offense versus the best defenses in the league, you're not going to play them every week. You're going to get them maybe 3 times this year, maybe 4 times this year, with the exception of if we exclude San Francisco. I can't gauge them on what's a true test of how good they're playing. It's a week-to-week thing. This week coming up may not be any Saquon. Saquon nicked his ankle up. If Saquon nicks his ankle up, he can't play. Can the other guys just pick up the blitz coming in and stuff like that? That's going to be a big question.
And even Andrew, Howard, we still don't know about Andrew either. I left him.
And Bredesen too with the concussion.
Yeah.
I think Brenison's going to be out. I think Andrews is going to be out. I know Saquon's probably going to be out. So those 3 guys are going to be out of your offense. So you're already gauging how well they're going to do when you're taking key components away from the offense. It has nothing to do with it. This week specifically, I think it's more important to keep everybody safe, to keep everybody healthy. Figure out a way to score more points. If you continue to score points, the defense has got to, quote unquote, start to step up more this week than they had in the last week. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know who's going to be the guy that's going to, quote unquote, be the bell cow to start, going after the quarterback. And I'm looking at them rush. It's not like a lot of taking edges and rushing. They're 2-gapping all the way back to the quarterback. And I'm confused.
2-gapping.
Yeah, by the way it looks. But and again, that's me guessing what they're doing. That's not me saying that's what they're doing. Every pass rush looks like a bull rush, and they're running over the guy trying to get to the quarterback. Later in the game, I saw guys taking edges, and they were getting loose to the quarterback. But early in the game, it looks like everybody was 2-gapping. So I'm not sure how it works.
Howard, are you a little surprised about – that's what I saw too, a lot of 2-gapping and a lot of those one-on-one bull rushes. And are you a little surprised Wink isn't being a little more aggressive?
It's not – I don't know if it's Wink. I don't know. Again, I'm looking at things and trying to diagnose it from the sideline. I don't know what the game plan is. If I have a rush on and I know that I'm a rush guy, I'm going to take the edge I'm supposed to take and rush. I think that they get in trouble mostly because they're not the picket fence. They will get out of gaps and leave big holes. Once Dobbs ran for a long time, couple big runs, the bull rushing really started to look more. You could really see it more pronounced. We can't let him just run up the field. We need to keep him in the pocket. What it seemed like what they were trying to do.
And that's what's been missing. Yeah, go ahead, Russ. Yeah.
No, Howard, I just wanted to ask you, you make a good point. You can't gauge everything, what the offense is going to be against this defense or that defense. Now, listen, I believe this Giant, and I said it going into this season, that this Giant offense can be very good. It was not very good, obviously, in week 1, and it was not very good in the first 2 quarters of week 2. Is it fair for us to gauge that this offense, I believe it, but, let's say naysayers want to say, well, wait a minute, that was an Arizona team that's not very good, and they blow that lead. Are we doing a fair gauge by saying, yeah, the Giant offense is that good when it did so against that team?
No, it's not even your gauging. You're just gauging, you're doing it game by game. Look at it for what it is. They weren't hitting Daniel. Arizona sacked Washington 5-6 times. They were getting to him. They sacked Daniel maybe once, maybe twice, and it wasn't because they sacked him. It was because he held onto the ball, not to throw it, not to throw it away or put it in jeopardy. That's the difference. When we get to this next game, I said again, you're still missing some key components. The ideal is can you continue to score? If they continue to score points, if they score 10, if they score 17, if they score 21, regardless of what San Francisco is doing, they have to continue to score points. And I think Gabe's and those guys learned the lesson with some of those guys that were in the game. I think Ezeudu, I hate to say it, Ezeudu's a really, not hate to say it, I'm happy to say it. He's a really, really good player. He's played well at guard. He's played well at tackle. Yeah. And their premier guy that they had to rush the passer was rushing on him. He didn't get anything, didn't catch anything. and that builds confidence for the offensive line. Does it translate from week to week? Like I said, you don't play the same guys every week. And remember, Arizona played with the energy of Dallas in the first half because they thought, hey, look, these guys will give up if you get on them early. That's what the joke was on Instagram and Twitter and everything, or X, whatever it is. And they started to play like that. Even the broadcast was sounding that way. It was like, well, they've been outscored in the first 2 games. About right now, 40 in the first game. They're outscored 60-0. The Giants haven't scored in 6 quarters. And I'm listening to which is all true. And I respect what Bob and Carl were saying and everything. But the reality of it was, I'm like, one thing doesn't have to do with the other thing. They're primed to start to make plays, and all of a sudden they start to make plays. This coming week, if you can slow Bosa down on the outside, if Bosa isn't a big issue in the backfield every play, then you're going to see some more offense. That's just
the Niners. Yeah, and the Niners, to me, have more power on the interior than Arizona did. Not to take anything away from the Cardinals, but once again, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, very different than what Arizona brings to the table. But to your point, Howard, the Giants' offensive line stood up. The Zudu, McKeithen, the 2 North Carolina products, they came in on a short turnaround scenario where they were playing a game of musical chairs, as I like to call it. And you didn't have those disruptive plays by Arizona in the second half after Dennis Gardeck, their top pass rusher, got that early sack. But, Chris, I think bringing this back to the defensive side of the ball, now you want to see, okay, can the defense for the Giants have the same level of stability and have some of those splash plays, as I like to call them, moving forward? Because right now we're looking at 2 games where the Giants have yet to record a sack and they have yet to record a takeaway. And we know they only had 6 interceptions last season, which was tied for the fewest in the NFL. But, Chris, we're not seeing a lot of finishing at the opposing quarterback. You had the 6 QB hits, but you're not seeing maybe a game-changing play that shifts field position.
Yeah, Lance, listen, this game, and how to tell you this, it always comes down to what? You got to win your one-on-one battles. They're not doing that now. They're not getting to the – except for Dex. I think Dex has like 4 quarterback hits in 2 games. Nobody else is winning their battles up front. And the difference so far, the first 2 games this season compared to last year, and I know it's early in the year, is that their third down defense and red zone defense hasn't been as good as last year. That was the key to Wink's defense last year. They were keeping them out of the end zone, getting off the field in third down. I believe they were top 10 in both categories. This year, not so good so far. And that's been a big difference. But Lance, bottom line, you have to win your one-on-one battles up front. You could scheme and do all this stuff all you want. You still got to beat your guy up front. This game will never change as far as that. And right now they're not, except for Dex. Dex is getting some hits. Guys like Thibodeau, other guys, even Leo, right? They're not getting there up front. That's been a problem. Like you said, 0 sacks first 2 games. A handful of hits. I know Dex got 4, had a couple of hits, but got to start winning the battles up front. Unless this is going to be a long year, because now you have offenses like San Francisco, Seattle coming in, Miami, and if you don't start collapsing that pocket, it's going to be a long day, man.
Yeah, a lot of time for the quarterback is always a bad thing. I think also, looking at it, football's changed so much, and I know the fans realize this, but it's changed so much. I'm watching so many guys rotate in and out of the line. I have no idea who's playing half the time. Dex, when he's in, he makes a couple plays and he's out on the sideline and somebody else is in. And it's not that they're resting him, it's just a different package. They have all these different packages they keep running through. It's like they're testing, trying to see who and what and how. And I'm curious to see, like last year, they were so limited with the defensive line. They didn't have enough, depth to really do that much. And Leo and Dex had to play a lot. And we're like, well, we got to get them some rest. Now you're giving them rest all the time and having different packages, and it doesn't look the same. Maybe they need to play a little bit more, and then these guys need to come in to spell them instead of like having just a package for them.
Well, you know what, Howard? I was just going to ask you that. Do you think that by doing that, and I understand that the mindset with the rotation, the mindset is to keep guys fresh, but by keeping them fresh, you're not allowing them to get into, and I'm not just saying this with the Giants, I'm saying this across the board with anybody. You're not allowing them to get into a rhythm where they're feeling the game. It's coming to them and they're adjusting to it.
I think it's a package system. I think that almost every team in the league runs packages. They have like the kid that just got the contract at Kansas City. He's
Chris
not a
Jones.
package. Yeah. He's not a package player. He plays.
He's out there all the time.
Yeah, Chris is playing. So you have to they spell Chris, meaning they give Chris a rest every once in a while, but Chris is playing. That's kind of, if I'm Dex, I'm like, yeah, you can get somebody to rest me. I don't need a package. Don't package me. I'm going to Wink personally and telling Wink, like, yeah, man, I'll tap my head when I need a breather. Let me out. Don't set a package up around me. I want to play. And that's going to have to be some of these guys' kind of attitude going forward, because the packages are great, but I don't think there's a continuity when you keep changing guys, because you can't practice it enough. You can't practice it live enough. You can't do, like, the world's changed. Like Carl and I were talking about, we were jokingly talking about how we used to practice every day, like, combination blocks against each other. We did live practices with pads every day, combination blocks. We would stay after practice to work on things together, trying to get things right. The union and the way the league is set up now, you have a finite time to practice, and you have to get it all in that moment. You can talk about it later, but you can't physically do it later. And the union is like all over you if you do. So packages are hard to, quote unquote, get right every time, because you don't have time to do it. Michael Parsons plays every play of Dallas's defense until, either he needs a break or they get a big lead. That's just not a package. I need my best player on the field as long as he can do it at a high level. And that's what I think that's kind of the difference in the league. And that's where the Giants are trying to, quote unquote, feel their way through moments. They're feeling their way through. The only person that's on the field full time is the offensive line and the quarterback.
It's interesting you brought up about, the union and what, because I was talking with Carl Banks just last week before they were taken off. And we were talking about, I was asking questions about the offensive line, and he felt offensive lineman, he says it's the hardest position to learn. And these guys are having a hard time learning it, as opposed to years gone by, because of the rules and the agreement, and there's not enough time to practice it, and that's why it takes guys longer. I never looked at it that way, but it really does make a lot of sense, because you hear it all the time. It's a very hard position to learn. Maybe people just look at somebody, he's a big guy, 6 whatever, 300 whatever, easier said than done. It doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, you got to draft a 4-year starter at a single position. If you draft a guy, he's played a little guard, he played a little left guard, he played a little right guard, he played a little left tackle, played a little right tackle. We've needed him everywhere. When you bring him to the league, you're trying to get him to play a position. And that position, he's got to play against other pros. It's not like he's the biggest, strongest guy out there. He's a guy that's got to play against other pros. And no matter how gifted you are, if you're not, you haven't consistently been this one guy the entire time, they're going to expose everything you have until you get it right. It's going to take some time, and I don't know how they're going to get better at it. You see some teams that draft guys, they draft guys that are from that position solely. They don't go like, well, this kid, he could play in a lot of different positions, which means he doesn't have a position yet. That's all that means.
And Lance, if you don't mind, I just want to backtrack what Howard said before. Like, we all agree, we all know this. Dexter Lawrence was at all-pro level last year, played in all-pro, not Pro Bowl, all-pro. He played 46 snaps out of his 65 yesterday. Like Howard said, he's got to get more snaps than that. Okay? He's got to be on the field more than 40. Leo, I think
46, that's a lot of snaps. That's a good amount. But who else played 36?
But a guy like Dexter, like you said, you want to see him a little bit more, not part of that package, right? Howard, he's the one guy. I'm not saying 65, Howard, but he was one guy. You still like to see that 50 plus. The one guy. Leo played 37, I believe, yesterday. So they're rotating. Look, we'll see what adjustments Wink does as we move along. But they're doing, now obviously they have those packages in to give these guys a rest, because last year they played way too many snaps. They did. So we'll see what Wink does. That could be an adjustment as we move along.
Well, and
Packages are
to your point, yeah, go ahead, Eric.
packages are supposed to increase productivity. They're not supposed to they're not for rest. Packages are supposed to, my son plays in Notre Dame, and like last year he was like one of the third down specialists. I'm like, what's going on with your reps and stuff? He goes, they want me to rush the passer. I'm like, that's great and everything, but just play, just like put you in and just play. He goes, well, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. But this year he plays every down until he needs a breather. And I'm like, that's just different. He goes like, I like this the new way. I'm like, well, you should have done that last year. He's like, I didn't tell your coach that because that's not my position to say that. But if you have a player that's going to make plays, let him go make plays. Aaron Donald goes makes plays. Right? Dex is going to go make plays. Your best player, make him go make plays and make other guys that come in with him. And he looks around and he goes, okay, I see what you guys are trying to do. That should free me up even more. That's what it's for.
I think to Chris's point, like we're not saying, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but Chris is not saying everybody's got to play X amount of this. But no. As you said, you mentioned in the Donalds, you mentioned in the Parsons, Dex, your best guys, those are the guys you need to be out there because those are the guys that make the plays. And if they're not, now I can understand a rotation and or you're trying to make something happen, especially in that first half, but whatever was going on was not happening. The defense just wasn't getting done. Howard, I got to ask you this, and it drives me nuts. You played, I didn't. It drives me nuts with some poor tackling. And it has not just wasn't just yesterday. We saw some of that, even though they had success last year, we saw some poor tackling. Why does that happen? I mean, these guys are good players. They play hard, but I just don't understand that. I see guys bouncing off. I saw one happen with Adoree yesterday. I always shake my head when I see.
I know how it's going to answer this question. Go ahead, Howard.
It's an attitude adjustment, actually. Yeah. You when you come in and you throw at a guy, like guys are talented. Like Connor isn't supposed to be a great back, but if you throw at him and throw your body at him, he's not just going to fall down because you threw your body at him. He's a big, strong kid. Yeah, he's like, you got to go in, hit guys, wrap up, put your body weight on that guy. Bring your pads every time you tackle. What seems to be happening, and I'm not calling anybody's name out because I'm trying to be as fair about this as possible. I watched a player several times dive at him. Same player over and over. Every time he dived at him, he ran by him. Not one time, every time. You got to bring your pads. You can't run like, I run to the limit and this is it. No, you run through him. You put your body on him and you wait for help. That's how you tackle someone. In the old school, when we taught Pee Wee football, we used to do this drill where everybody runs to the ball. Like it has nothing to do with anything else. Just everybody runs to the ball. No matter where the ball is on the field, we'd have all 11 kids run to the one spot. We throw it to a coach, everybody would have to run over to the ball to get to the tackle. And it seems like a very simple point, but NFL players, and I don't mean the Giants, it's just any team, NFL players don't really do that. They'll see a guy trying to get down and they'll kind of cruise over him. Like, no, run until he's down. There should be like 8, 9, 10 guys jumping on him to knock him down. And that's just something that has to happen. And again, that's not the Giants. That's every team. I watch it all the time. I'm going to reference my son. I said, "Do you want to make more plays?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Run to the ball." He goes, "I run to." I said, "No, just look at the film one time. Run to the ball. You'll make 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tackles a game that you didn't expect to make just because you're running." And that's the thing that football, for the most part, guys are trying to protect themselves. They're not going to always throw at a guy. If you think you can't tackle a guy, grab him. And that's the big difference. Tackling is this thing you think you put your pads behind him, you throw your body into him, you bring him to the ground. Not always. Grab him and hold him until your teammates get there. Everybody runs to the ball, it'll stop.
Howard, do you feel that the lack of hitting in these training camps really affects tackling the first few weeks of the season?
I tell everybody the same thing. It also affects injuries, in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor. I tell everybody the same thing. you can't box if in a bout. You can't get in the ring, no headgear, and put gloves on without sparring. If you're fighting a guy you never fought before and you get in the ring with him without sparring, he's going to beat you up. He's going to beat you down. If you want to fight a guy, you got to spar against a guy, the same kind of technique. You got to work with guys. You got to slip and jab. You got to do everything. But if you like, okay, I'm just going to fight a guy on 3 weeks' notice. I don't have to warm up for him. I'm that good. No, you're not. He can knock you out. And that's what happens. And it's hard for these guys to do. Tackling is an essential part of football. We practice, and again, sounds like a get off my yard kind of moment. We practice full speed a lot in practice, and no one was getting hurt. No one was. Now they're saying that you're going to get hurt in practice, so we're not going to practice. And then they just leave you out there to try to go at it full speed later. So there are missed tackles. There are guys in bad positions that get hurt. They're tweaking things. They're tearing things. They're pulling things. That's just the way of the league now.
Well, tackling is a skill set. So if you don't work on it, obviously it's going to show up in terms of games. And I think tackling is not a skill. If you run full speed and put your head across a guy's body and grab him with your arms, he will go down. Well, but it's a fundamental skill, is my point. There's a fundamental feature of the game that's involved in tackling, though. You have to be in a position. You got to run to the ball, as you mentioned. If you're out of position with respect to that, of course there's going to be issues.
What they do now is they roll a giant donut. There's a huge pad. They roll it across the field. The guys run full speed, and they dive and they put their head across and they wrap it up, and it goes down. That's a great drill, but it doesn't look like a person with knees and elbows moving towards you.
Sometimes I also wonder, to the points everybody's making here, the rules. I do think some guys, I'm not saying everybody, but some guys, because listen, Howard, I watched you play, and back in the day, stuff that is called today was not called then. And I think not everybody, but I think some guys are afraid of getting hit with a penalty or hit with something, or you hit this guy too low or too high, or helmet, or a baby tap, even to a quarterback where you basically just graze his helmet and you call for yards.
Yeah, think about the hit on Daniel Jones where Daniel slid and the guy, he didn't even hit him. He just kind of fell on him. They threw flags from like all over. Flags were coming out of the stands. I'm like, what's going on? Like he was trying to hold up. He slid down and he kind of like, okay. They're like, he's like, come on, I didn't even hit him. He's like, hey, that's the call. But I can't blame refs, because you'll see things that happen that, like that, and they throw flags, and you'll see something that happens that they should throw a flag on and they don't. I saw tons of holding calls on both sides where guys were being dragged to the ground in the passing game. No flag. I'm like, okay, so I guess they're not calling holding today interiorly. So like it just happens that way. And they could call a flag on every play. The game would be like 7 hours long.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why you got to feel out the officials in every single game to determine what the tone is going to be like. But speaking of the run game, where I want to finish up is, and we alluded to this earlier, was the toll that injuries may now have on this team, specifically the absence of Saquon Barkley. Because if you guys remember, he had one of the biggest runs of the game for the team on that final drive, where he was making multiple guys miss tackles and helped the Giants get in position in Arizona territory for the game-winning field goal. And we know they've got Matt Breida, and we know that they've brought in some younger options such as Eric Gray, but the dimension that you miss with now Saquon Barkley potentially not being on the field, and I know we don't know his status, but guys, he's been through the ankle injury before. Chris, he missed 4 games in 2019. He missed 4 games in 2021. So it's expected that in all likelihood, given the fact that they're going to play a game in a few days, the chances of Saquon being on the field, given how it didn't look good, at least from an optic standpoint, is probably very low at this stage.
Well, I think he's probably going to be out if you think about it. He has 10 days. He misses this game, which is Thursday. The next game isn't until Monday night. So that's almost 8 days, 9 days. I think that's where he gets it gets better. I think the same thing with Thomas. He misses this game. You just got to like qualify it. You want these guys to get their rest to get back like 100%. If they go out there and tape up and try to play this game, then they're sore for the next game. So it just happens during the season. I don't think it was anything too serious. I don't see people running around and scrambling and going on. I'm hoping it's like a regular ankle sprain and not like a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, you hope it's not the high ankle. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was no announcement of a high ankle sprain coming out of the in the injury reports. It's just like, oh, he has like an ankle sprain. And I think that with him, I think he's probably more upset that he got any injury instead of like, he's trying to get his money this year. He was like, I need to get paid. I want to get paid.
No way.
He was doing all that. And all of a sudden he gets his ankle twisted. He's like, damn, like I can't be injured. And like that plays into players' minds. So he's upset, not because so much he's injured, but just, the whole scope of his whole career is like he's looking at it every time he gets injured. And that plays into it. And I don't care what anybody says. It definitely does. And like if you're hearing in your negotiations, and I'm not saying I know anything about the negotiations, but they're like, well, you've been injured a lot. He's like, okay, well, I was very important to the team, but you've been injured a lot. I'm important to the team. You've been injured a lot, but I'm important to the team. You've been injured a lot. Then you get injured. Whatever injury it is, a small one or a great one, whatever it is, that, that's the first thing that pops in your mind when you're sitting there.
Yeah. Look, we'll find out more today. I just didn't like Howard, guys, when Saquon sat down, he slammed that helmet down. The first thing I thought was, oh, man, I bet you this is a high ankle, the way he just reacted. But we'll find out today. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully he comes back in Seattle.
I think it's more of him thinking about, all the stuff he had to just go through just to get himself on the field.
Yeah, the frustration of not being available, essentially. I think that's what it was.
Yep.
Well, do you think the frustration, Lance, that plays with that it might possibly be that high ankle where he knows he's going to be out of field, or just the spur of the moment, like, damn, I'm going to be out now. The rest of the, this game, I'm injured.
He was walking on his own. There was no boot on his ankle or anything like that. If it was a high ankle, there's more. And again, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know anything. There's more. They do more to you when it's a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprain is
usually they put you in a boot, Howard. I've seen it 100 times. You've seen it 1,000 times. Usually they put you in that boot. Yeah.
It's closer to a break than you think.
Yeah. Just watching the body language on the sideline there with, Ronnie Barnes just talking, I didn't sense, I sensed the disappointment and the frustration, but I didn't sense, if you will, panic or like, oh my God, here we go again. It was just, frustration, encompassing everything. But I just didn't, I kind of felt better watching Ronnie Barnes talking. First he was talking with him, then I watched Ronnie talk with Daniel. And I don't know if to say matter of fact is the right words, but it just didn't seem like the sky's about to fall because Saquon went down. And we're going to certainly find out about that this coming Thursday night.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to undergo further tests, so I think that'll tell a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going on the record right now and say he's not playing Thursday night.
Oh, and I'd be shocked if he played.
Oh, I'll be shocked if he plays Thursday, Howard.
No,
right now the goal is the Seattle game that Monday night.
Yeah. What I meant about Thursday night, we're going to see what the Giants are made of without without Saquon in the lineup. That'd be a major upset if he played on Thursday night, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why it's changing the dynamics of this team moving forward, because you look on the opposing sideline, they have a guy by the name of Christian McCaffrey, and we see what he does for the ground attack in San Francisco. We've gotten a taste of that with Saquon, especially in this Arizona game, because he and Daniel Jones were the fuel to the fire as to why they were able to overcome that 21-point deficit, as that matches the biggest comeback in Giants history going back to 2 times in the 1940s. And we know Howard Cross absolutely remembers those days because he was clearly on the field with those leather helmets. So it's good that we bring this conversation full circle as a result.
Great comeback, Howard, back then. Great comeback.
Oh, man, it's okay.
Yeah, he remembers those good old days against the Eagles as well as the Cardinals, coincidentally. So it was only appropriate we had Howard included on the Giants Hangout here. Yes. Well, with that being said, that is going to wrap up the latest edition of our podcast, as we will be here each and every week recapping the festivities from the previous game and talking about the biggest themes coming out of those contests. Lance Medow, Russ Salzberg, Howard Cross, Chris Bisignano with you here on Giants.com. And you can check out all the latest editions of the Giants Hangout on Giants.com, the mobile app, as well as your favorite podcast platforms. Have a good one.